Texas A&M, one of the elite teams in the entire country. Missouri has a third-string quarterback. Its CFP hopes clinging to life. So why does Matt Galatzan think this is going to be such a close ball game?
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, and also all you Texas A&M fans as well. I'm John Miller from Locked On Mizzou, here with Matt Galatzan from Locked On Aggies. Here, of course, to talk about a big-time Texas A&M Missouri football game. We're going to have our predictions at the end of the program. Going to talk about how this Missouri offense might look a little bit different with Matt Zollers versus the injured Bo Prabula. How we think Missouri can possibly pull the upset. Just a ton to get to on this program and what promises to be a really interesting football game here, Matt. And you know what? Before we start the show, I do want to remind you today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. And you know what? Big picture here, Matt. Safe to say the Mike Elko era is off to a great start for Aggies fans, huh?
Yeah, he's already got more ranked wins and top 10 wins in his first, 22 games than Jimbo Fisher and Kevin Sumlin had in like 3 or 4 years. So people are pretty excited about it. This is their highest playoff ranking, obviously, that they've had. And I could probably argue that they should be number one, which is what I did in my Wednesday show. So it's a pretty exciting time in Aggie land, that's for sure. But they've got a big test this weekend.
Well, make that argument for for my listeners really quick anyway. Why should the Aggies be number one in the country?
Well, I think that they have the best resume so far. They have the number one strength of record. I think that the Notre Dame win is more impressive than the Texas win for Ohio State or the Oregon win for Indiana. And I think that march to LSU and just beating the tar out of the Tigers at Tiger Stadium and, getting Brian Kelly fired is a better win than most of those teams have on their resume already. Then you look at the strength of schedule metrics and all of that stuff. It's just very clear that they have had the tougher path so far to this point, and they're undefeated. And I if you look at the eye test, their only close game was to Auburn. That's it. I mean, you could Notre Dame as well, but their only close call outside of that was was Auburn. And, Indiana beat Iowa by ostensibly 3 points. So.
And yet you and I were talking off the air. You think Missouri has a real chance to make this a close game. Why is that? We're going to get into it real deeply, but just big picture, why do you think Missouri has a shot here?
Well, I think that Missouri's a really solid football team. They're very well coached by Eli Drinkwitz. They don't make a whole lot of mistakes. They run the football extremely well, which has been a weakness of Texas A&M this year. And that defense, I think, is very, very good. Those two edge rushers, led by Damon Wilson, are going to cause problems. I know Texas A&M has a really good offensive line, but those guys are dudes, and they have statistically one of the top 2 defenses in the SEC. So I think this is going to be a low-scoring game that. Hey, if you can force a couple turnovers here or there, or whoever makes the mistake, the biggest mistake first is going to end up losing the football game. So I think it's going to be a lot tighter than people think.
Yeah, well, our friends at FanDuel definitely agree with you. It was 6.5, 7 last I saw, kind of bouncing back between those two numbers. One thing that's interesting, of course, is this is Marcel Reed's second year as a sort of, I don't know, what is this, half of a year was a starter last season. The reason it's a little ironic, Missouri did not see Marcel Reed famously last year. Eli Drinkwitz was not buying the talk that, no, Connor Wigman's actually going to start. Well, he did start and played quite well. I guess my question is, Marcel Reed, is he a better player than he was last season, or is this more just, hey, they got a couple of great portal receivers and that's really juiced the offense?
Well, I think that he has taken a few steps forward for sure. He's cleaned up his mechanics a lot. He's been more accurate with the football. I think he's making better decisions than he did last year, and he just has a really good connection with these wide receivers as well. Mario Craver and Casey Concepcion have been unbelievable, but in part because Marcel Reed has been throwing the football very, very well and getting them the ball in space. And I think that his second year really in the system with Collin Klein has paid huge dividends. They seem to be really on the same page. Collin Klein calls things that he really, really likes and that he's comfortable with. He doesn't ask him to do too much. And it's just been kind of a perfect marriage. Now, has he been the best quarterback in the SEC? I don't think so. I think he's a Heisman contender for sure, just based on the betting odds. I think he's fourth right now. But he hasn't been perfect. He still has a few accuracy issues here and there. But by and large, I think he's taken a major step forward this season. And I honestly think this is going to be the biggest test that he's seen so far this year, because I really do believe in that Missouri defense a whole hell of a lot.
Well, that's a really big compliment. I'm a big believer in that Auburn defense as well. But I agree with you. Missouri's defense is stout for sure. And just generally speaking, what are Reed's strengths and weaknesses as a player?
Well, I think that, number one, you talk about his legs. He's one of the faster players on the offense, and he's not afraid to move outside of the pocket and get downfield as soon as the opportunity presents itself. So in a scenario where, those two edge rushers are coming for Missouri and they get outside, he's not going to be afraid to step up in the pocket and hit the rush lane and go for a big gain. And I think that that's been a huge part of what they do. I also think that, his accuracy on short to mid-range stuff has been very good. His decision-making in the RPO game has been very good. Where he still kind of struggles a little bit is his downfield passing. A lot of the Texas A&M explosives have come on shorter concepts that have just, based on the athleticism of the receivers, have caused them to break big.
Sure.
But he's a very good decision-maker right now, and he's not afraid to put his body on the line and pick up some yards on the ground either.
Yeah, and the thing with that Texas A&M offense is they're very balanced. They can run the football with those tailbacks as well, which makes them, to me, obviously one of the elite offenses in the entire country. But you did not mention Arkansas, for example. That game ended up, on the scoreboard at least, being fairly close. The Aggies gave up a lot of points to the Razorbacks in that game. I almost think that's sort of coloring people's perception a little bit of Texas A&M's defense and probably just how good their offense is. But in my opinion, that's still a pretty solid A&M defensive unit. What are your thoughts on that? Maybe big plays kind of a weakness, but otherwise a really solid team, it seems like to me.
Well, I think that one of the things about that Arkansas game was Talon Green was just playing out of his mind. When that guy is playing really, really good football, he's incredibly hard to stop. There are some things that you can do to this Texas A&M defense that give them problems. Number one, running the football has been an issue for them on multiple occasions. It was an issue against Notre Dame, UTSA, a few other games here and there. They have had games where I expected them to struggle a little bit more in that department, and they, definitely proved me wrong. So that was, that it's kind of been up and down throughout the season. They have given up a few explosive plays here and there. But, I don't think that there's necessarily one thing outside of running the ball that you can do to this Texas A&M defense that really causes them a whole lot of problems, especially when their pass rush is really generating, a lot of pressure. Cassius Howell has been unbelievable this season so far. He's probably been the best pass rusher in the SEC, at least in SEC play. And if you're going to attack them, I think that one thing that would play a key role for Missouri is Matt Zollers' legs. I think he's a lot more athletic than people give him credit for, and he can really get out there and scoot if he wants to. So that's something, again, that Talon Green did that really gave Texas A&M problems, was him using his legs and his athleticism to get outside of the pocket and get down the field.
Yeah, on Zollers, I would agree with you for all you Texas A&M and Missouri fans out there who haven't obviously seen much of Zollers yet, just based on especially what I've seen from him in high school. I don't know that he's going to be a quarterback designed run guy like Prabula was a lot, but he can definitely scramble and buy time for himself and pick up those 3rd and 8s when you need him to against man coverage, that kind of deal. So, you know what, Matt, of course, we've got a ton to get to still on this game. I'm going to let you flip the script a little bit. I've been kind of piloting the ship. I'm going to throw the keys to you here in a little bit, let you ask me some questions about the Tigers. I also want to talk just a little bit about Missouri and Texas A&M being, yes, annual rivals going forward here. What do we think about that? Plenty to get to on this crossover episode of Locked On Mizzou. But you know what? First, I do got to tell you that when the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. More than 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. When you need parts fast, I'm telling you, Supply House is the place to be. Next day delivery. Talk about a game changer, and most importantly, really a money changer. Time is money in this business. I know from experience. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, even a dedicated support phone line. So visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That is supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. You know what, quickly, Matt, let's just talk about Missouri and Texas A&M being annual rivals. Mike Elko somewhat famously said, "It is what it is." And I think that really kind of captured everybody's sentiment on the Missouri side too. And I think it was just because simply we've been here before. 2013, 2012, the first 2 years Missouri and Texas A&M were in the league. Well, they played each other and then they changed it up, and it's just felt like it's weird that we're going backwards. Is that how you all feel too?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for every Texas A&M fan out there. But
well, I can speak for all Missouri fans, so thank you very much.
Well, I just, it's not the weirdest permanent rival in the SEC.
Right.
I'll say that. Like,
Good
Ole
for
Miss
us.
and Oklahoma was a completely out of left field for me. But they have a history going back to the Big 12. They came to the SEC together. Geographically, it kind of makes sense, I guess. I think LSU, Arkansas, and Texas make a whole lot more geographical sense than Missouri does, but it's not like they're playing South Carolina every year, so
right.
It makes a little bit of sense there. I'm okay with it. I think that just given their history, it's fine. It's not what I would have picked.
Sure.
And it's really hard to go through 16 teams and make sure that all three of the opponents that you have are perfect for each other, especially given all the, Texas and Oklahoma coming in and that kind of stuff. But I don't mind it. I like the Texas A&M Missouri matchup when they do play. I think it's usually pretty fun. I hope Eli Drinkwitz doesn't leave Missouri, because I think Elko versus Drinkwitz every year would be a lot of fun as well. So I'm fine with it. It's not the most exciting one on the menu. And
sure.
And the good thing is, in 4 years, they can change it all up and it won't matter anymore.
That is the good thing is, maybe this will turn out to be an awesome rivalry over the next few years. Maybe something will build here. I agree with you. And by the way, just for whatever it's worth, I think Eli Drinkwitz is going to stick around. So I think you're going to get your wish there. Don't necessarily hold me to that forever, but I think for this coaching cycle, we're going to be okay. So with that said, Matt, you take the reins, man. What do you want to ask me about the Tigers?
Well, I think that my first big question for you is, what's the feeling around Columbia about Matt Zollers getting the start? Because you mentioned early in the show, he wasn't first string, he wasn't second string,
right.
He's third string. So Sam Horn obviously not being available is an issue. Are people still confident in what he can do? Because from my perspective, I would be very fine with him. I think he's a very talented player, but obviously he doesn't have a lot of experience.
Sure, I think it's a lot of excitement, and it's almost like the day before Christmas or something, when you've kind of been a bad kid, but you've been good too. You're just wondering, what am I going to get for Christmas this year? But you feel like there's some real hope that maybe your parents are going to come through this year, if that makes sense. I just think that, yes, there's a ton of hope with Zollers. I was a huge fan of his coming out. I just never would have imagined that, what are we in week 10, week 11 of the season, that he would be starting here. And frankly, if you were saying that well, Missouri's actually still in it here, and Missouri has a shot at one of the best teams in the country. It's really kind of a confusing spot to be as a Missouri fan. The good news is you did see a little bit from Zollers the second half there, and considering he had no preparation as the actual starter, well, now you've got a bye week here, 2 full weeks of preparation for Zollers. that is something that gives you a lot of hope as a Missouri fan.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so. I mean, I really believe in this kid. I think he's really, really good.
I do too.
I mean, Missouri beat Georgia for him and a couple other teams. Then they got him out of Pennsylvania. It's not like he was a Missouri,
right,
a St. Louis kid or something like that. So that was a big recruiting win for them. And I think he provides a bright future. But obviously the offense struggled a lot against Vanderbilt. They only put up 10 points, even with Bo Perbula in there while he was in there. What exactly did Vanderbilt do against Missouri's offense that really caused them problems, and something that you think Texas A&M could have seen in that game that they could exploit?
Well, that's what's interesting is I wonder how valid what happened, especially in the first half with Perbula. Such a different player is Matt Zollers. The offense looked quite a bit different. I think Missouri needs to find a way to use their offensive weapons more, their receivers, their outside receivers in particular. I think there's potential for this to be an explosive passing offense with Zollers in particular at quarterback with that talented right arm that he has. I think there's a potential for this offense to look quite a bit different in that element. Now, that doesn't mean he needs to drop back and throw 35, 40 times. That's not the recipe for success for Missouri. They just need to be able to stretch the defense enough. Hit a couple explosive plays even would be just massive. That'll loosen up the defense a little bit for Ahmad Hardy in that rushing attack.
Yeah, speaking of Ahmad Hardy, that's exactly where I was going to go next, because he's, I believe, 4th in the nation in rushing heading into this game. I think he was leading it at one point in the early part of the season. I mean, he started the year with like 5 straight 100-yard games, including that 250-yard game against Louisiana. And then in SEC play, like at least recently against Alabama, Auburn, and Vandy, he hasn't reached that mark yet. And I think that people assume it's just, okay, he's in SEC play now. He's not gonna have the same success, but he averaged 4.3 yards per carry against Alabama, and he averaged 4.9 yards per carry against Vanderbilt. What is your view on what he's going to be able to do in this game? And against Alabama too, he only had 12 carries,
right?
Which I don't know if he got hurt. I didn't watch that game, but it seems like they need to give him the ball 20 to 25 times,
sure,
especially with Zollers back there.
Yeah, I agree with you. And frankly, I think most Missouri fans, I thought Hardy should have gotten the ball more against Alabama. Some of that was a game script thing. Missouri got behind at one point, but certainly if Missouri does fall behind in that game, again, you can't just expect Matt Zollers, as much as you and I both like him, you can't just put the game on him. So even if Missouri falls behind 14-0 in the first quarter, you still got to hand the ball off 50% of the time, in my opinion. And, throw some jet sweeps in there. And by the way, something Missouri's gotten away from, I think, the past couple weeks in particular against Auburn and Vanderbilt, just wide receiver screens and just screen passes in general to slow down the pass rush a little bit at times, because Missouri's offensive line and in particular their pass protection has been a little bit up and down this season.
Yeah, I mean, I really like getting the ball in Kevin Coleman's hands in space. I think that would be
absolutely
a tremendous idea for Missouri for sure. And I guess my other question for you would be, every SEC game they've played has been a one-score game. South Carolina 29-20, Alabama was a 27-24, Auburn 23-17, Vanderbilt 17-10. I assume that that's probably going to be the case in this game as well. I don't think that it's been either side is really going to have a huge advantage in terms of a scoring, margin in this game. But I think that really speaks to the talent of the Missouri defense. And I guess so my question for you is, what does this Missouri defense, in your opinion, do so well that has put them in position to win all these football games, even against what has seemingly been, over the last 8 weeks or so, a juggernaut in Alabama?
Well, I just think that Missouri's really solid at every level of the defense. But, of course, in particular, the front six, the front seven, whatever you want to call it, you start with those pass rushers. Damon Wilson, you brought him up before. Zion Young is really, really productive as well. And then even on the inside, you've got a great player like Chris McClellan. I think Josiah Trotter at linebacker, one of the best run defenders in all of the SEC. And early in the season, Missouri was giving up a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but that was where they would get hurt was in explosive plays in the passing game that were based on usually miscommunications and coverage busts. It seems to me, at least in my eyes, over the last 2 or 3 weeks or so, there's been a lot less of that. And you brought up the Alabama game. I mean, Ty Simpson, in my opinion, won that game with just some incredible throws that you couldn't really defend in really key situations. That really didn't have a whole lot to do with the Missouri defense. But I'll tell you this, I agree with you. The Missouri defense has got to play a great game, obviously, but I think Missouri's probably got to score, I don't know, at least 24 points to win this game, in my opinion. And here in a little bit, let's predict if Missouri is going to score that many points. Of course, we got to think Matt is probably going to take the Aggies, right? But do I have the balls to take the Tigers? That's what's really important. Let's find out in a minute. But first, I got to tell you about FanDuel because the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And even if you miss the tip-off or you just want to ride the hot hand in the ball game, well, FanDuel has live bets on everything you could possibly imagine, and you can even combine live bets into a same-game parlay for an even bigger payout. By the way, right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up today and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And like I said, Matt, I just think that Missouri's probably got to score 24 points in this game, something like that. I think they've given up. You were talking about SEC play and that Missouri defense. Well, the only time they've given up more than 20 was to Alabama, and they had to earn it. So I'm kind of with you on maybe lean toward the under on this one, by the way. I think 48 is the total. But is Missouri going to be able to score enough? I think I would love to predict here and say yes. I think they can. I just think it would be kind of almost irresponsible and homerish to pick the Tigers in this one. I just think, and that's respect to Texas A&M and really has less to do with the Tigers. So I'll go with Texas A&M winning a close game. I'm going to go with A&M 28, Missouri 21.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I believe Missouri is a lot better than maybe some other people do, even with Matt Zollers at quarterback, just because I think they play really good complementary football. And I think to this point, they might be the most complete team on both sides of the ball that Texas A&M has played so far this season. Notre Dame's number 10 in the college football playoff ranking. They're a really good team, we think, but they've also lost against the two only good teams they played. So we don't know how good that team actually is, in my opinion. I think Missouri's really, really good. I think that they're going to be able to keep this game close. And in terms of picking the game against the spread, which is 6.5 in favor of Texas A&M, I'm going to pick Missouri to cover because I just think it's going to be a one-possession game. And I don't necessarily know that A&M's ever going to be in trouble in this game, but I think Missouri is going to keep it close to the end. And so I'm going to pick Texas A&M to win 27-23, I think.
Is it just me, or is this just me as being sort of an old school college football fan a little bit, or does this game kind of have a weird feeling to it in that it feels like this is a must win for Missouri, at least certainly to keep their playoff hopes alive. But for Texas A&M, they've got a pretty good margin for error here. I think technically, I mean, A&M there's a world where they could lose a couple more ball games and still get into the CFP. How are you feeling about it from that angle?
It certainly feels that way. On Missouri's side, if you beat Texas A&M, I mean, who do they have left on the schedule after that?
We've got at Oklahoma, at Arkansas, Mississippi State at home.
Okay, so if they beat Texas A&M, I don't think John Mateer is very, very good. I think Missouri is going to beat Oklahoma. It doesn't matter who's playing quarterback.
Wow.
So
I like that prediction.
I think that if Missouri can beat Texas A&M, I think they're going to run the table the rest of the way, and I think they have a shot at making the college football playoff. It especially if you get a win over Texas A&M and a win over Oklahoma, that's a really good resume, especially considering what else they've done this year. For Texas A&M, it kind of feels like, yeah, you do have a margin for error. And even if you lose to Missouri, you're still more than likely 11-1 heading into Austin to face Texas, who could beat Georgia. If they play like they played against Missouri, they can beat, or I mean, against Vanderbilt, they can beat Georgia. So that could be a really, really big matchup. And if you lose a close game there, you're still a 10-2 football team, and your only 2 losses are to teams who, if those things happen, are probably in the playoff themselves. So it would be really hard to keep Texas A&M out. That said, I find it hard to believe that Texas A&M will lose another game in the regular season. I think that they're very primed to make it to Atlanta undefeated. And then what happens against Alabama is anybody's guess. But it's nice for Texas A&M, who usually entering November is, still kind of grasping it. Are we going to get there? And now it just feels like as long as you just play your game and you don't implode, not only are you going to get there, you have a really good shot to be the number 1 seed.
Yeah, and if Texas A&M gets to the SEC title, perhaps even wins the SEC championship in Atlanta, one thing that just struck me, if that happened, or if Missouri did it for that matter, real long shot on that one, let's say Texas A&M does it, they'd be the first what I would call expansion team to win the conference. I'm talking back even to South Carolina and Arkansas. None of those teams have ever won it, so somebody's going to do it eventually. Maybe it'll be Texas A&M. I think that's an interesting note to go out on. So, you know what? Thanks to Matt for joining me here on Locked On Aggies. Thanks to all of you for joining us. And, of course, all the Texas A&M information you want, you got to follow at Matt Galatzan. You got to follow Locked On Aggies on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. And same thing with Locked On Mizzou as well. So until next time, I'm John Miller for Matt Galatzan. And this has been a crossover edition of Locked On Mizzou and Locked On Aggies.